Warner Bros. Discovery reportedly wants to secure All Elite Wrestling into a long-term deal as negotiations for an upcoming television deal are on the horizon. Plus, could this mean major changes coming soon to AEW television? We'll talk about all that. Plus, The Kingdom, Matt Taven, Mike Bennett, Maria Kanellis. Have they signed AEW contracts? One source says yes. Another report says no, not just yet. We'll speak about that. CM Punk breaks his social media silence with an Instagram story, and Wardlow discusses the backstage environment currently in AEW. Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there are plenty of news stories to get into in the world of All Elite Wrestling. So let's start off talking about AEW, Warner Bros. Discovery. What's the latest and what does Warner Bros. Discovery want to do when it comes to All Elite Wrestling's future? And if you're an AEW fan, if you're a fan of AEW on TV, on TBS, on TNT, possibly coming to True TV as well in the future, it's good news because there is a new report on Warner Bros. Discovery wanting a long-term deal with All Elite Wrestling. 2023, of course, is coming up on the horizon. It's wild to say it's like 2.5 months away, but it'll be a very important year in the history of AEW, with contract negotiations with Warner Bros. Discovery looming as their deal is set to expire at the end of that year, at the end of 2023. Now, on the latest edition of John Orezi's Pro Wrestling Spotlight podcast, the host discussed Warner Bros. Discovery running AEW ads during sports programming like TBS's coverage of the Major League Baseball playoffs. Orezi said, quote, "They're trying to make it a sport. That's what the strategy is. The strategy is that they're pushing AEW into the sports category, not the entertainment category. They're increasing that because of the new ownership, because Warner Bros. Is now Warner Bros. Discovery." Orezi continued on to address Warner Bros. Discovery's strategy towards All Elite Wrestling, saying, quote, "Everything I hear of what's going on, even with TNT, it's going to be turning into a more sports-centric network. So they're now putting their resources behind these promo announcements to increase ratings. So whether or not they're tasteful in regards to the violence and the blood, there's a method to the madness." Orezi concluded by discussing what the inside sources are saying in regards to a new deal, saying, quote, "I'm privy to a lot of insider conversations, at least on the Warner Bros. Discovery side. I have a lot of people there in very high executive positions that I've known for many years, that I've worked for when I was in television here in Nashville. The same people who are now the leaders of Warner Bros. Discovery on the ad sales front. They see this property, AEW, as someone they want to be in the business with long term. They had a contract which was absorbed by them when they merged that wasn't the sweetest deal for TNT and TBS. It was kind of one-sided. So now what they're trying to do is kind of collaborate and work together so they can work on the next long-term deal with them. I can't get into it too much, but there's a lot of faith behind the AEW product right now from the folks at Warner Bros. Discovery." Now, there is a bit of an update when it comes to these possible changes, because I think there's some really interesting verbiage that John Orezi uses there. And if you doubt John Orezi's sources or reputation, he's been in the wrestling business a really long time, and he's known a lot of the movers and shakers for a really long time. Now, as I mentioned, speaking about there is a bit of an imbalance there, it certainly is quite interesting, but it could be said that certainly with what John Orezi is saying there, maybe we do see some changes. The strategy, as I mentioned, is that they're pushing AEW into the sports category, not the entertainment category, and this would certainly fit the plans to turn TBS into a more sports-centric network, and it bodes well for AEW if the plan is to keep them on that channel and rework it to fit the profile instead of shuffling it to a different station under the Warner Bros. Discovery umbrella. So this is certainly positive news from AEW perspective, and certainly positive news for AEW fans, I think, as well. Look, I know a lot of people on social media, and I don't think those people really come at this issue of AEW's upcoming television deals with a lot of good faith. I think for whatever reason, there is this group of people out there, the anti-AEW fans or the WWE fans, for whatever reason want to see AEW fail. Now, for me, my perspective on this, and you know me, guys, I like to consider myself a bit of a straight shooter when it comes to this. I think there's a lot you can criticize AEW for. I think as a product, it's far cooler in terms of it not being hot than it was this time last year. I think this time last year, AEW was very hot and had a ton of momentum behind it with new signings and with a bad product on the WWE side of things. And fast forward a year, you've got turmoil backstage, you've got WWE shake-up massively, a massive creative overhaul with the departure of Vince McMahon and Triple H re-signing people and a lot of buzz behind a revamped and refreshed product in WWE. But I don't think that means AEW is going anywhere anytime soon. And as I've mentioned, I'm a wrestling fan. I'm not a WWE fan. I'm not an AEW fan. I'm a fan of both, but most importantly, I'm a fan of pro wrestling. I like what I like. I like what I don't like, and I'll critique both brands, both companies, and any television show as I see fit. I don't understand why people have accounts dedicated to saying how bad a product is or how bad a television show, because that's what it is at the end of the day, a television show. I always liken it to, imagine you're a fan of police dramas, and there's Law and Order and there's CSI or something like that. And the Law and Order fans have accounts dedicated to how bad CSI is. And there'll be a scene in CSI and they'll go, I can't believe people watch this. Oh, look, it's terrible. Or look at that bit where he's clearly not talking, but they recorded the lines over the fact. Rah, rah, rah. People would see that and go, they're crazy. How sad are those people? That's basically what you're doing if you run any of these accounts. It's bizarre. It's frankly bizarre. And for the health of pro wrestling, as someone that's lived through the monopoly years of having just one company, one big company, and I know TNA was around for a little bit there, and it still is, but in terms of being a major competition to WWE, it never was on the scale that AEW is. TNA was not selling out arenas on a weekly basis like AEW is, and they didn't do anywhere near the business that AEW has. People will say, well, Owen, on Spike TV, TNA back in the mid to late 2000s was getting nearly 2 million viewers. That is perfectly valid, but TV is a lot different, because at the time, Monday Night Raw was getting like 4 million viewers, and they're not anymore. So times have changed. What AEW has been able to do that TNA could not is sustainably travel on the road, is have massive pay-per-view success. I mean, they've already in 2-3 years had a ton of, I think every single pay-per-view they've had has done bigger business than any TNA pay-per-view. So the fact they're a much closer competitor to WWE than TNA ever was. They are still never, ever, ever going to be on the scale of WWE. They're never going to be able to do the business that WWE can and is doing. They're never going to be the number one pro wrestling company in the world, because WWE just has so much of a head start over them. It's impossible. But it's important for the business of pro wrestling and sports entertainment that there is a second company that people can go to, that people can use as leverage in negotiations, that people can go to build a character, or when things get bad in one company, go to another. It's important for a thriving pro wrestling ecosystem. There has to be a big number two, and that's what AEW is. So for those people that want to see AEW fail or fall, that is not going to happen, because Warner Bros. Discovery publicly and now privately have been expressing how interested and how happy they are with AEW. They release a press release nearly every week talking about how good the ratings are. We've seen CEOs and chief marketing officers and chief content officers all come out and say they're very happy with the product that AEW is putting out and with the television ratings that it is generating. Previously, in that time slot, on a Wednesday night, whether it was on TNT, now on TBS, it wasn't delivering the ratings that AEW Dynamite is. It just wasn't. Dynamite, for whether it's good or bad, most weeks is either the number one or number two or number three show on cable for Wednesday nights. And TNT, TBS, Warner Bros. Discovery, they can't believe their luck when it comes to that. As I've said a million times, there are three things that draw nowadays in terms of cable television. It's live sport, it's cable news, and it's pro wrestling. And pro wrestling draws because it's kind of both of those things. It's a bit live sport, it's a bit cable news, and it's a little bit of entertainment on top of that. That's why it draws. And in comparison to scripted TV shows, scripted TV series, or limited series, it's far cheaper to produce, and it's more reliable when it comes to ratings. So Warner Bros. Discovery will be looking at AEW and saying it's just sports enough, it's sports entertainment, but it's just sports enough that it fits in with what we want to do for all of the stations going forward. It's relatively cheap, and we know it draws, and it draws better than really anything else that we could put in that time slot, 52 weeks of the year, which is what pro wrestling does. So they're going to get a new TV deal. by the way that television deals work, it will probably be for improved terms. I know what John Arezzi is saying there, and it is quite interesting to hear him say, actually, you know what? They did assume this deal, because remember, it was Warner Bros. And Discovery that merged together, and now they're looking at a situation where they're like, well, we weren't actually a part of those initial negotiations, because remember, this will be the third television deal that AEW have had. The first one they had was just an ad split. They weren't getting paid to produce television by Warner Bros. At the time. All they were getting was a split of the ad revenues. They had to pay for production, they had to pay for the talent, they had to pay for everything, the building, and they would get a split on the ads as they came in, 50-50, or it might be a bit better than that. But they did so well, and Dynamite was such a hit for TNT that Warner Bros. Said, right, we're re-signing, we're renegotiating that deal. We will pay you to produce this television show. You've proved it to us. We will pay you money to produce this TV show. And then the budget expanded. That's why they've been able to sign all of these people to contracts and why their roster has expanded. And I don't see a scenario where Warner Bros. Discovery says, well, we're happy to have you, but we're going to reduce your rights fees. No, because if it's not Warner Bros. Discovery, there will be names out there that'll be interested. And whilst Warner Bros. Discovery can want AEW as part of these television discussions and negotiations, there's a real possibility that a big hitter, a Netflix and Amazon Prime, who are both dipping their toes into live sport. Amazon Prime is now covering the NFL. It's now covering Premier League football over here in the UK. There is absolutely a possibility that someone like Amazon Prime could say, we want Dynamite every single week. We want Rampage every Friday. That is very, very real. And if that is the case, Warner Bros. Discovery cannot compete with Jeff Bezos and his kind of finance. He just can't. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's another player involved here, but Warner Bros. Discovery knows what they've got. They've had a terrible year when it comes to finance and when it comes to share price. Real bad year when it comes to their stock price as well after their merger. So they need something they can rely on and can be guaranteed to deliver ratings and money, and AEW will do that. So whilst John Arezzi can say the deal initially was a bit more one-sided towards AEW and they want to negotiate to ensure that it's right and they can get a better value for money, AEW is going to get more money. I have no doubt about it. AEW will get more money. It will be the biggest TV deal yet, which it should be. And there is no concern that AEW is going to go anywhere anytime soon. It's not going to be a WCW situation whereby they don't get a TV deal. The person that's hosting them decides they don't want them on the network anymore, and then suddenly no one wants to pick them up. Those days have gone. Everyone's desperate for content nowadays, and especially the big hitters. Not just content, but content that is every single week live is gold dust. You just can't get that. That's why sports and cable news are so valuable as well, because they're every single week of the year. You don't have other television programs that are like that. And pro wrestling is different from every other show in that aspect. So they'll do fine. They'll do just fine. I have no doubts about that. Now, speaking of new signings and the expanding roster in AEW, the Kingdom appeared to be a name that had recently signed with the company after their Impact Wrestling departure. This is a really interesting story, actually, because the Kingdom, of course, debuted in All Elite Wrestling, but they weren't officially signed to AEW deals at the time, according to a report via Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful Select. But according to Sean Ross Sapp, this has changed. However, there is some conflicting information on this. The trio of Maria Kanellis, Mike Bennett, and Matt Taven finished up with Impact Wrestling at the Bound for Glory tapings and dropped the Impact World Tag Team Championships, but it hadn't aired yet. And as a result, when they appeared on AEW television while in canon, they were actually the Impact champions still. The three debuted on AEW Rampage from Toronto and made a challenge to FTR for the Ring of Honor World Tag Team Championships. Now, Fightful are also reporting that FTR themselves actually pushed really hard to get the Kingdom involved. However, the context on that hasn't actually been revealed just yet. But upon their first appearance, the Kingdom actually weren't inked to AEW contracts at the time. But since then, Fightful are now reporting that all three members have signed multi-year contracts with All Elite Wrestling. This would make Maria Kanellis just the third female alongside Awesome Kong and Brandy Rhodes to appear for AEW, Ring of Honor, WWE, Impact Wrestling, and New Japan Pro Wrestling. There were previously rumors when it comes to Matt Taven that WWE was interested in the former Ring of Honor World Champion, but Fightful have been told that Maria Kanellis and Mike Bennett both also had deep conversations with WWE, but there hasn't been any confirmation on firm offers for them to go back to the company. Despite openly being open and talking about her desire to help book Ring of Honor or a women's division in Ring of Honor. As of right now, Maria is only contracted as a talent. When it comes to other Honor No More members from Impact Wrestling, Vincent finished up in Impact recently. He was backstage at Raw shortly thereafter. There has been speculation he could be involved in the Wyatt Six faction, certainly with all this discussion about who is Uncle Howdy and the Righteous, etc., etc., etc. Well, this is really when it gets even more interesting, because you would think, okay, Fightful have reported that, Sean Ross Sapp has reported that, Fightful Select has reported that, their accuracy is usually very, very high. However, there now have been conflicting reports on this. Wrestling Inc. is now going with something slightly different here, because Wrestling Inc. is reporting that while the Kingdom have been offered AEW contracts, they still have yet to sign them. With that said, it does sound like the three former Ring of Honor stars should be joining AEW very soon. So it's quite interesting that Sean Ross Sapp is going as far to say no, they're signed. They've signed AEW multi-year contracts. When they first appeared on AEW television, they had not signed AEW contracts, but as of right now, they have. Wrestling Inc. are saying, no, that's not actually the case. It's not a done deal. They haven't still yet signed on the dotted line, but the intention is that they will soon. I don't know if this is a case of splitting hairs, because one way you could look at it is you could say, well, they're going to sign. It would be very surprising if now the Kingdom showed up on WWE television. Anything's possible, certainly, but I think that's very unlikely. Maybe it could be a case of them looking to see or waiting to find out just what is the case with Ring of Honor. Obviously, they're going to be really, really important for the Ring of Honor brand going forward. They're feuding with FTR over the ROH World Tag Team Championships. We know that Final Battle is coming up, so chances are they're probably going to be facing FTR for the ROH World Tag Team Champions at that Final Battle pay-per-view. I think it's also worth pointing out as well that Tony Khan recently intimated that we would get a Ring of Honor weekly television series beginning in 2023, and hopefully soon we would get an update on the future of that and where that's going to be moving going forward as well. So maybe they're just waiting for a bit of clarification as to what is going to happen with ROH moving forward. I'm not sure, but I look at it as splitting heads. The Kingdom are in AEW, and I don't suspect that will change anytime soon. CM Punk has broken his social media silence amid his suspension and rumors of a buyout of his contract, possibly having one foot out of the door. Since the incident, of course, at AEW All Out Brawl Out, CM Punk has not posted on social media, but he broke that silence yesterday on October 25th by making a post to his Instagram story. The story featured Punk advertising the new Blade of the 47 Ronin movie on Netflix, which was written by Amy Garcia of Dexter fame and CM Punk's wife AJ Mendez, AJ Lee. You can see it on the screen right there. But as far as anything else, CM Punk has not commented on his AEW status. He's not commented on his injury. He's not commented on any buyout rumors. And I don't suspect that he will. As part of the buyout, it's probably going to be an NDA or some form of non-disclosure agreement involved in that too. So I don't suspect we're going to see a CM Punk shoot interview, because last time we did one following a departure from the company, that didn't go very well. So I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. Wardlow, let's get an update on Wardlow. He's discussed the backstage atmosphere in AEW following the aforementioned incident at All Out. He recently appeared in an interview with the ESPR podcast. Wardlow spoke about the backstage environment in AEW and how chaos has affected the environment behind the scenes. He spoke about 3 AEW stars stepping into a leadership role amid the Elite's absence. He said, quote, "Everybody backstage has done such a great job of communicating, and we've been honestly through all of, you said, chaos. Fortunately, on the inside, it has made us so much tighter. I feel like since all of that stuff happened, these past couple of months have really changed the locker room. We have a really positive leadership. Guys like Jericho, Moxley, and Bryan Danielson, they are true leaders and they are very passionate. They've done such a good job of getting the locker room together and on the same page and getting our company on the right track. We talked about this recently. I feel like our locker room is as tight as it was when we started a few years ago. When we first started, man, we were all on the same mission. We were a family. We survived COVID together. We spent more time with each other than our own family. It was a really, really special that year that we basically lived in Jacksonville. Everyone bonded so well, and I feel like recently we're back to that, which is certainly interesting because that's exactly what has been reported recently about the backstage environment in AEW, with the likes of Sean Ross Sapp, PW Insider, Dave Meltzer, all saying the same thing, which is pretty much verbatim what Wardlow just said about the backstage environment significantly improving in AEW. 3 big leaders stepping up: Bryan Danielson, Jon Moxley, and Chris Jericho, in the absence of Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks. And certainly going to be interesting to see what happens if and when the Elite come back. Is that leadership structure going to change, or have things changed permanently in AEW? I would hope, for the sake of the company and for the sake of the leadership structure moving forward, that those 3 guys that are involved right now, Moxley, Danielson, Jericho, 3 guys who have a ton of experience, have been in multiple different dressing rooms and multiple different companies. I think they might be the ones to lead AEW forward. But there you go, guys. That's the latest AEW news for you. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. Let me know your thoughts on today's AEW news stories in the comment section below, and I'll speak with you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.